I got a call from a friend, and he goes, "Do you have anything to do with Kevin Fulton?" And I went, "Faxed him something last night." He said, "Well, he stepped down this morning." I said, "Well, it might be a coincidence, but this is before 9 o'clock. Like, he's out of there. It's on the news, right?" By the end of the day, I think 3 others had stepped down, and by the end of the week, 16 were not seeking re-election. So then I got the federal type people involved on saying, okay, now your office, here's what your mandate is. You have to do this, and if you see a crime in progress, you have to do something about it if your position has that as part of its mandate. So that's how I implicated all the federal people, because here's a crime in progress, you need to do something. Mm-hmm. They didn't. So they went into default. And that's when the clerk of the Privy Council stepped down.
Do you ever have any people like on judges or politicians or people like within that box encourage what you're doing? Maybe they're wanting to get out of it, but they wanted to support what you're doing?
This is even in the beginning. I had some judges, because of the questions I was asking, I had one judge go, "You seem very sophisticated, keep going." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I didn't understand what that even meant, right? But she could see that I was asking the right questions that would get to the root of the problem. And she said, "Keep going." And I had police officers who would shake my hand at the end of our encounter and also say, "Keep going, I know what you're doing, keep going."
In the United States, how is it that we the people appear to no longer have our constitutionally recognized rights?
Mostly because there's an assumption that you've given up the rights in order to receive benefits from the corporation. Social Security being the biggest one. The fact that you're taking benefits from a corporation means you have to also obey all the rules, so they just start to use that as leverage in order to get their agendas through, so that we're agreeing to all of this. Most of the countries on the world are corporations. Not really countries. They're operating as countries, but it's really a business. And they're in the business of, they create laws in order to make money, so that's why when you get a speeding ticket, it costs you $119. Anything you do that breaks some kind of statute, you pay. It's just a business. It's not teaching you anything, it's not making you a better human being or anything like that. It's just a way of paying.
I needed to verify that countries are actually operating as corporations. It didn't take long to find that in the US Code, United States is defined as a federal corporation. And on the US Securities and Exchange Commission website, Canada is in fact listed as a company located in Washington, D.C.
And we go and vote every 4 years thinking we're going to change something. And anybody that's voted for any length of time knows very little changes. It just seems there seems to be an agenda that always is running in the background, and it doesn't matter who you vote in, the agenda keeps going. So I want to give you a diagram. This is the basic idea of how a jurisdiction works. This is you, and you work at Walmart, and you work in the automotive department. And there's a manager there, and he said, "I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars per hour, and you have to show up here and put hours in as I say." And you go, "Okay, I agree to that." Now, what if the automotive guy tells you, "I want you to show up on Sunday night at 2 o'clock in the morning when the store is not open"? You could go to the manager of the Walmart store and say, "This guy's trying to make me come in when we're not open. That's against your policy." The automotive manager cannot make you do something that's outside the jurisdiction of the Walmart store. Now, the Walmart store is in Detroit. This is a corporation. So now Walmart, because it's in Detroit, has to obey the rules of Detroit. Now, outside of Detroit is Michigan. It's a corporation. And Detroit is subject to the laws of Michigan. Now, Michigan is inside what is called the USA. It's another corporation. And Michigan is part of that corporation. Now, outside of this is the real USA, the original republic. Unfortunately, they sound the same. So people think that they're here when they've agreed to be in here, just like you agreed to go here. And there's people that are wondering why the Constitution doesn't work in courts. Because the courts are here. So when you bring the Constitution in, they're going, that has nothing to do with us. You think you're here, but you're actually here. And that's the biggest problem. What you have to understand is this is subject to this. You just got to approach it in the right way. They don't tell you this, though. You're assuming you're here, and they will let you think that, but you're actually here. And you're there by agreement, just like Walmart. Now, there's another set of laws called the law merchant. This law merchant is a set of laws to govern what we call commercial law or admiralty law. Outside of this USA, and actually part of this Republic of USA, which is the original, this is where the Constitution is what's called the common law. So the United States was founded on the common law, as was Canada, and they are still both functioning, but you got to know how to invoke them. So once I understood this and I learned a little bit about a law merchant, and then I knew that Canada was a corporation, and I knew that the courts were just another corporation inside that, I started treating them like that. This is just business. And you guys are subject to these outside things. So as long as I'm out here, I'm above you. And so I started trying stuff. I went into court, and we usually wait outside the courtroom because I don't like to doing all the bowing to the judge. It's very ritualistic. So we waited till my name got called, and we walked through the door, big door out because it got paged. They obviously called the case in the courtroom, and then when I didn't show up, they page outside. So we walked through the courtroom, and as I'm walking into the courtroom, the judge is running off the bench, full flight, cape blowing, out the door, and I went, what was that? And everybody else in the room was the same thing, like, what's going on? And so the sheriff goes, all rise? Like a question, I guess we're having a break?
Do people have lesser rights if they're represented by a lawyer or by an attorney?
Well, your rights never disappear. You waive them in order to be represented by somebody else. A judge will look at your actions. So if you come in saying, I got this right and I got that right, but you're represented by a lawyer, he's going, no, he, in his mind, he's just looking at you, no, you don't get it. You don't have those rights. You can say that all you want, but you've waived them. So he will assume that you don't have those rights, and he will make his judgments safely accordingly.
Is that why traditional legal processes, especially in issues of magnitude, such as the worldwide agenda to deploy radiating surveillance meters, is that why traditional legal processes don't seem to be successful? Exactly.
Because they've taught you to go and fight down here, play this other game in courts and all that stuff, and that's what we believe is where the remedy is, and they're just looking at you, well, sorry.